Hi everyone, and Bounty from Said With Love, and welcome to the next month of A Year of Hearts, our block of the month program that we've been doing all this year, and every block has had something to do with hearts. And as you can see, we've got some cute little blocks that we've been doing so far this year. So this month, it's called Raining Hearts. And if you haven't got that earworm in your head by now, you know, it's raining men or hearts. So this is a beautiful big cloud we're using some needle turn applique this time. But as I've said before, we've done quite a few different applique methods during the year so far. So if needle turn applique is not something that you love doing, you could do raw edge applique or any of the other types that we've done. And then some sprinkles of rain of hearts coming down the bottom. And at the moment, I haven't finished doing my applique on those, but that's what the block looks like. And there's an option to do a scrappy background like I have done here, or a solid background, which is what I'm going to be working on and showing you how to do things in a moment. So if you're not a newsletter subscriber already, sign up. There's a link in the caption below, because our newsletter subscribers are getting these blocks free for the first few days of each month. And after that, they're available through the website as a paid option. And it's only a small fee per block. And we're getting very close, I'm hoping, next month to do the release of the setting layout of the quilts. I've ended up with 3 different layouts. Can you believe it? 2 of them are going to be free to newsletter subscribers, and the 3rd is going to be paid for everybody. It's a lot more complex, and there's a lot of extra blocks in it as well. But more about that next month. Let's get to talking about how to do our Raining Hearts block this month. So this is our block for the month. And as I said, we've got a lovely needle turn applique cloud with the little raindrops coming down of hearts. So, and this is the scrappy background option, but today I'm going to show you how to make it with a solid. So I have just picked a lovely pale pink, because I'm actually making 2 versions of this quilt and one of them I want to have sort of the pinky colours in the background. So I'm just using a solid background. So that's going to make the first step of my block very simple. Now the next step is obviously our templates, and we're going to cut around the cloud. If we're doing needle turn applique, sorry, this is me showing you how to do it as needle turn applique. And there are different ways of cutting out your templates and things for needle turn applique, but this is the one that I have found the easiest. So first of all, cut your big cloud out on the outside dotted line. And here's one I prepared earlier. Always wanted to say that. So there's my cloud that I have cut out. And this is going to be my cloud fabric, this really vibrant pink colour, which thinks it's gorgeous. So I'm going to find a little spot over here. And I'm going to grab my air erasable pen. You can use anything here, but when we get to the next one, you'll want to use something that's erasable or not noticeable terribly much on this fabric. So for this outside one, I'm just going to use my air erasable pen, and this is going to be allowing us to see where the seam allowance is for our cloud. So I'm just going to scoot around the outside with my air erasable pen. Okay, so there's my outline. Now I'm going to come and cut around that, and as I said, that includes my seam allowance. Just going to do a big cut to get that. Get rid of all of that, and it makes it a little bit easier for my cutting. Now this cutout doesn't have to be super perfect, because as I said, this is the seam allowance. This is going to get turned in underneath our cloud. Okay, let's just get rid of those scraps. Now, I tried with this cloud shape to not make too many indented spots that we'll have to do the needle turn applique on. These still require a little bit of extra work when we're doing our needle turn, but they're a good way to start learning how to do it. Okay, so we come back to our paper template, and I'm now going to cut off my seam allowance. Now, I know this seems a bit funny. We could have just started with this and just by eye added our seam allowance, but I like to use my template. I find it easier. So I'm just going to scoot around and cut off that seam allowance. Okay, so there's our seam allowance cut off, and now we can center our little template, our paper template, so that we can see our seam allowance and it's even all the way around. And then this is where we're going to come back with our air erasable pen or something that will allow us to do a line. Now we're going to, this line may show a little bit when you've finished. So it needs to be something that is either going to match in okay with your fabric or be erasable in some way. Sarah Fielke, who is my needle turn applique guru, uses an archival quality gel pen in a silver, I believe. She says she has them available on her website, so I'll put a link into the caption below if you want to go and grab hers. And she does ship all around the world, I believe. But I have an air erasable pen today, so that's what I'm going to use, because when it all comes down to it, it's what we have available to do the job in an okay manner. So I'm just going to come around again and make a line all the way around my template. Now with an air erasable pen, it will disappear after an hour or two. So, and if it's in hot weather, it will disappear even quicker. So I need to be ready to do my needle turn applique, or this next step at least, pretty soon. You can't do it, walk away for a couple of days and expect it to still be here when you get back. So, okay, is that showing up? And it's gone all the way around. Okay, so I can take my template off and we're done with our template now. Now, the next thing we need to do with this cloud is actually come around and fold the seam allowance under all the way around. And this sort of gives the fabric a bit of what's called a fabric memory. So it knows that that's where it has to fold. And so when it comes time to start putting this onto our background and doing our sewing, it's going to be so much easier. So even though this is a bit of a pain to do, it's terribly worth the time and effort. So I'm going to take it between my fingers, and on that line or just inside, so that the drawn line is then going to be underneath, I'm just going to finger press. and finger press pretty firmly, I must say. And, you know, when you're going around the curves, you're going to have multiple little presses. And when you get to one of these corners, we're going to do a fold all the way there and then a fold all the way there. So there'll be a little bit of an extra fold in your cloud fabric. But it means that that corner or that turn is going to be a little bit easier to do. So this is just a little bit time consuming, but as I said, very, very much worth it. And as I said, I'm trying to fold just with that drawn line underneath or just on the edge, even though mine will disappear after time. And when you're going around the corners, just do small little folds so that you get a sort of a smoother sort of curve. This shape hopefully won't be too hard to do. I did fairly soft curves except for this end. Okay, so I have now gone all the way around, and you see how it sort of sits up a little bit. It means I've got a good press and a good fold in those spots. A couple of extras that I obviously didn't do quite as well. So that's our cloud almost ready to get attached. So the next thing is placing it on the background fabric. Now, when you're using the scrappy background with the little background squares, it's probably easier to place them, but we need it sort of near the top, not too close because obviously we've got a seam allowance up there, and same with the sides, but closer to the top than the middle because we need room for our running to happen. Now the next thing we need to do is, once we've decided on our positioning of our cloud, we need to pop a little bit of glue underneath so it doesn't move. Now I like to use Roxanne's Glue Based It. I find this glue fantastic for putting just little bits. You don't want the glue too close or anywhere near close to the edge because obviously we need to turn this under. So, you know, the glue needs to be sort of in the middle part. I'm just going to put a dab here, a dab there, press it down. And you need to let the glue dry. I actually usually, not cheat, but I usually actually put a quick iron on it. But now that we've got this pressed edge, don't really want to do that because I don't want my edge to press. So I'm just going to press those little dots down, and I'm going to leave it for probably about 10 or so minutes so that it's nice and dry, and then I can come back and show you how we start sewing this on. Okay, so it's had a bit of time to dry, but whilst it's still continuing to dry, we're just going to talk about the other things we need. And of course, it's thread. And we need a thread that is going to match or be very close to the fabric of your cloud, so that when we are taking little stitches into our cloud fabric, you won't notice them terribly much. I use Aurifil 80 weight. It's really fine. Seriously, it is not much thicker than a hair, but it is quite strong and it has the most gorgeous colours. So that's the thread I'm going to use. I've got a needle and I've already threaded it. Again, I'm a bit of a believer in whatever needles you've got on hand is the needle for the job, but a thin needle is better so that the stitches are then not very thick and big. We've already found a lovely thin thread. We might as well find a fairly thin needle. Thank goodness my eyesight is pretty good, because boy, the eye of that needle is horrendously small. So I'm just going to pop that there. So we've got our needle, we've got our thread. We'll need some scissors or some snips, and really that's about it, so that we can see nice and close what we're going to do. Now I'm going to start down here on this nice sort of almost straight section, so that I can get into a bit of the habit of my thread and my needle and my stitches before we start getting to some curves and some of the slightly more difficult bits. So I'm going to grab my thread and needle, and I'm going to come up underneath, and I'm going to come up underneath, see if that light's better. I'm going to come up underneath my near the seam where the sewing's going to happen. I've got a little knot in there, and we are just going to kind of hold fairly flat. Sometimes I'll bring this finger over the top, but that's really just to sort of help get these seams under. And we are just going to fold over on that fold where we push, and we're going to take a little stitch into the background, and we're going to do a little stitch into the actual cloud, and we're just going to, and this is where the needle turn bit comes, we're just going to use our needle to try and put that next little bit under. You don't want to put too much, we just want to handle one little bit at a time, nice and gentle, nice and easy. And as we start getting to the curves, as I said, I sometimes bring that other finger around to give it a bit of a help. Needle turn applique is not something I do particularly often, so it takes a little bit of time to get back into the habit of it. Now I have a fairly long thread. I perhaps wouldn't suggest doing that because they can get tangled pretty easily, but I'm just going to take it nice and gently and nice and slowly. I'm going to turn my work, and I kind of fold this bit under a little bit, but not all the way, because obviously we don't want to accidentally sew it into here, but just to try and get it out of the way a bit. And a little bit more. And sometimes you sort of do this swishing motion to get your fabric underneath the cloud. Now, the line that we drew is to keep you on track of where the curve actually is. I mean, we did that fold of the fabric, so hopefully the fabric has a bit of a memory of where it needs to go as well. But the line is there for us to remember and make sure we're not going off track too much. But heck, this is a cloud. Clouds have little fluffy bits and little lumps and bumps, so don't be too worried. Now we're trying to keep obviously our cloud fabric nice and flat and our background fabric nice and flat, because we want our cloud and background to sit flat when we're finished. So as you can see, this isn't a fast way of doing things. But I do love the look of it when it's finished, so sometimes it's worth the effort. Now, as we're coming up to, and you might not be not a sharp corner, but it is a corner, and when we get close to that, we need to find our nice sharp scissors, and we're going to snip almost into that corner. You're going to leave a couple of threads of fabric there. So I've just made that cut, and that means that this side fabric can go right the way under. Just do some stitches and I'll show you. So I'm getting in close to that corner now. So I'm going to come and put under that other side of the fabric as well. Just using my needle, just making sure that that's turned as far under as I possibly can. And when I'm coming into that corner, I'm going to take some normal stitches, and then I'm going to take a slightly bigger stitch in here and actually do 2 or 3 little stitches in that corner, because as we cut pretty closely, we actually don't have a lot of fabric there. So we want to make sure that our stitches are going to hold it in. Okay, so I'm going to take one into the corner. This is why we're good to have thread that is pretty close to the same. So there I'm going to do another sort of third little one. I think Sarah calls it a little bird's foot or something. I don't know, that might never look like a bird's foot, but it has that effect of doing 1, 2, 3, so that you're stitching down those edge little bits of fabric. And then of course we can start then on the other side and keep working our way around. So that's all there is to it. I think patience is perhaps the biggest thing. Following your little line. And continuing on. So when you've gone all the way around and you've done the 3 little stitches in that corner and the 3 little stitches in that corner, and maybe even in that one's a little more shallow, and then gone all the way around, you've got your beautiful cloud on there. Now, depending on the thickness of your fabrics, you can actually come in here, hold your cloud fabric, just get it, your cloud fabric away from your backing fabric and do a little snip in here, and you can actually cut out this background fabric about 1/4 of an inch. I'd be generous, so a generous 1/4 of an inch all the way around inside your stitching line, and that just makes sure that there's not too much bulk under your needle turn applique. I'm not going to bother doing that. Basically, this cloud fabric is pretty thin. In fact, I think you can actually see some of the fabric through it, so I'm not going to bother with that. And then, of course, we have our beautiful hearts, and you can do these in any way that you prefer. I'm just going to do some raw edge applique around those, so I've attached them to the fabric with some fusible fleece, and I'm going to go around each of those hearts with on my machine in some coordinating thread. And so that is then going to be your finished, beautiful raining hearts block. If you like these tutorial videos, please like, subscribe, pop in a comment. I love hearing what people think about the different blocks. So talk to you next month.